All right, and we are streaming to YouTube. Should get some people in here in a little bit. Do some posting, let people know we're here.
All
right.
So,
and you want to explain everything to them, Jacob?
yeah. So, what we kind of do is we kind of just go over comics beginnings and comedy. We both watched your movie, so we're gonna try to avoid like any crossover questions from that, like you asked us to.
Sure.
Anything goes, like just a
Yeah.
regular,
Whatever you want.
yeah,
Yep.
just comics talking. And
Sure.
yeah, we're gonna ask you some questions, talk about your special, all kinds of fun stuff.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Oh, and our intro music is dog shit. So if you want to give us your opinion on it, feel free.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Here we go. I can't wait for you to hear this because we'll explain it after we play it. But here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Just drop that ass, bitch. It's open micers in the house. Pop that pussy with that open micers logo in your mouth. Jason with his bald ass head. Jacob looking in red. It's open micers, bitch. Heard what I said. Drop that ass. Open micers in the house. Drop that ass, pop that pussy. Open micers in the house. Open micers in the house. Open micers in the mouse. Drop that ass, pop that pussy. Open micers in the house. The mic is now open.
That's right. The mic is now open. My name is Jason Robbins.
I'm Jacob Craig. I cannot wait to get our guest's opinion on that atrocious piece of music we call a theme song. But I'm going to introduce him for you guys first. We have a very special guest on this episode. One of my personal top 10 dream guests to ever interview in any facet of life. And I'm so happy we have him here on the podcast. He's a comic that you know from 3 seasons of Sullivan and Son. You know him from appearing on The Tonight Show 10 times. You know him from his multiple stand-up specials. You know him from his fantastic film that he wrote and directed, The Opening Act. And you can actually stream his newest stand-up special right now on punchup.live called The Champagne of Comedy. It's very good. I highly recommend it. It's the one and only Steve Byrne. How you doing, my friend?
Great. I think the intro song sets the bar so low. It's like, all right, the comedy's got to be. It's got to make up for her.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
You would think.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
And this was provided to us from a local musician.
No.
Yeah, dude, he's been on our show multiple times. And
So not like a national act. That was actually local. Wow, okay. That's surprising to me. I would have never seen that curveball coming.
yeah, no, he does not do arenas at all.
Okay.
He's just a local guy. And he has since like started like a beef with me about like how he thinks his music is better than my comedy is. And I'm like, how bad does everyone think my comedy is?
What, you mean it got real or?
I mean, it's a little, he's kind of playing, but it's a little real, you know?
Okay. That's always a fun area to be in, where it's like, wait, what's going on? Are you like really pissed?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the thing. I caught some of his. He did a Facebook Live the other night, and he was on there talking about his beef with Jacob, and it looked like he was doing some sort of like hardcore right-wing conspiracy, like what would you call it, Jacob? Like some kind of like, I don't know, like he was putting out some kind of weird hard right-wing like terrorist type of thing. Like he had this dude behind him that was like lifting weights, and he's like got, you know, camouflage on. He's wearing like a gas mask or whatever. You know, it's like, it was really weird. And I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, you fucked with the wrong militia, I think is what we're learning. That's crazy. Wow, a man of many talents.
Yeah, it was like he was putting out a manifesto. That was the word I was trying to think of. Like he was doing some little weird manifesto thing, and I'm kind of scared because I don't want to die on the podcast now because of your beef, Jacob.
I think we'll be okay. I mean, if he's as adept at killing people as he is at writing music, we'll be fine.
There you go.
Because he's not good at writing music. That was a very roundabout way of saying.
And the feud continues.
The feud continues, but there's no reason to talk about him while we have Steve Byrne sitting right in front of us, dude. That's such a waste of everyone's time. This is a giant waste of our time to be wasting it on Mark Simmons when we could be asking Steve Byrne questions.
Fuck you, Mark Simmons.
Yeah, dude. We're gonna clip that. Jason,
no, that's
clip
a clip right there.
Clip that. Steve, dude,
Yo.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm struggling to not like high pitched scream fangirl over you being here with us because I'm a giant fan of yours.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, dude. I resonated so much with your movie from the very beginning because full disclosure, I used to watch your stand-up specials with my dad all the time. So like you would be one of the guys on the TV screen at the beginning crawl of like my life story.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that.
Of course, dude. I'm curious to know like how many of those comics we see in that opening crawl are like your real life influences, and how many are like maybe left field influences did you have coming up?
Well, when we're doing the film, it's not like strictly my. You're getting a wide variety, especially these days. You got to be very, diverse. But the one I really wanted to make sure was in it was Margaret Cho.
Yeah, of course.
Because Margaret obviously is like the Asian Richard Pryor. You got to kiss the ring,
Yeah.
The one disappointment to me was Joe Coy because I wanted to, given that Jimmy's Asian American, I thought it'd be, you want a wide diversity, but I wanted Joe to be in the beginning as well. And he never got back to me, which was kind of that to me was very disappointing. It was like, I want to be somewhat communal in it within the community. Not by any means is that the film has got to be Asian American, because as you saw, it's not. It's just like I wanted the subtext to be there of like, well, he was probably inspired by people that have a similar background. That's it.
Right. Am I sensing some Mark Simmons-esque Joe Coy beef brewing
No. But I just wanted to make sure like I was putting in the right comics, like popular comics, somebody that like Jimmy present day would have been influenced by back in the day,
Right. And so if that was completely about you, like what 3 comics would you say would pop up on that screen?
Well, for me, it's very different. I graduated college in Ohio. I moved to New York City. I got a job on a whim at Caroline's Comedy Club. I never in a million years intended to be a stand-up, never been to a stand-up show, never loved stand-up. It wasn't like it was something I grew up with, like Jimmy in the film. I was just kind of like, I got there, and after 3 or 4 months, I was like, fuck, that looks like fun. I think I could do that. And that's how it happened for me. So I wasn't really even influenced until years later, where obviously when I started, I love Brian Regan, I love Gaffigan. Of like the kids I was coming up with at the time, like Bill Burr and Jim Norton were 2 guys like I saw, 2 or 3 years older than me, but looked up to them of like, wow, that's an authentic voice. Like even back then at 22, 23, I knew like if I could just be that natural with my voice, that'd be fantastic. And I think that's why those guys have resonated. Geraldo, somebody else, Colin Quinn. Again, like all these New York guys were really influential. But then I got older, developed my own voice, and now like I've gone down this rabbit hole of exploring, doing an homage to the classic one-liners and Carson-esque monologues. So you see right there, it's Dean Martin, Bob Hope. On the top is Jack Benny and Carson, and there was old TV guides with those guys on the cover. So I've really like gone down the rabbit hole on those guys and learning as much as I can about them and the cadence and the style of comedy that they were doing. So I think, it's always changing. It's always evolving, at least for me, of like who I'll just happen to be inspired by.
So if you didn't grow up like, liking stand-up comedy or anything like that, when you did get into it, was it one of those things where you're like, all right, well, I need to go back and sort of try to absorb as much as I can?
Well, I mean, I grew up watching like 80s, Caroline's Comedy Hour, Evening at the Improv with Bud Friedman. I mean, I'd watch those things with my dad, but by no means was it like my holy grail, like, oh my God, I got to watch Sunday at 8 o'clock. It was just like stand-up was always on in the 80s. So it was something, I do with my dad. I do with my dad and brother. We'd watch stand-up together. So I was very familiar with everybody. It wasn't until like years later, like I remember one of my first professional gigs was like, oh my God, that's Bobby Collins, that's Bob Nelson. Like these guys I would see on TV, and then working at Dangerfields, I was like, holy shit. I remember watching the Young Comedian special and seeing Dom Irrera and Sam Kinison, the same one. And, then all of a sudden I'm working with Dom years later and friends with the guy. It's a pretty surreal experience, I think, especially those first few years when you're starting to see people that you were friends with. And even when I was doing the opening act, one of the greatest moments of my life was we were filming the film at the Old Bray Improv, and the new Improv had just opened. And I'd heard Dana Carvey was performing at the new Improv, and I had maybe 15 minutes in between, like filming a scene. I ran over, and I was like, I just want to introduce myself and meet Dana Carvey. And I walk in, and I'm like, Mr. Carvey, I'm working next door. He goes, Steve Byrne. I go, oh my God, it was one of those surreal moments where I had a church lady poster from SNL hanging in my room as a like an eighth grader. And I was like, oh my God, you know who I am. And it was one of those surreal, great experiences. And I think even to this day, you could, 25 years for me doing this, there's still moments that will come in and out of your career where you still feel like a little kid and you're enthused and surprised by it.
Were you a huge fan of SNL or just
Huge, yeah.
certain people?
Huge fan of SNL. I grew up with, Farley, Sandler, Carvey, Mike Myers, Spade, Rock. That was kind of like my introduction into it. And then going into they'd have those anniversary specials, whatever. But Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, I think Bill Murray, those are just like three people that, like, I'm just on board. Anything they do. It's just like I'm laughing the minute you come on screen. I know something great's going to happen. So those were always kind of like my favorites.
Yeah, I always feel like that era, that was my era as well. Like, the Dana Carvey and Adam Sandler, Chris Farley. That was, to me, was the golden age of SNL. Like, I love the early stuff, too, when I was a little kid. Like, my dad, loved the early stuff with, Bill Murray and all those people. But, that era was my era. And maybe I sound like an old man. And we've talked to different comedians about this before, but I just feel like SNL's kind of lost something over the last...
Well, I'll tell you what it is. I think what it is they went from a character-driven sketch show to a premise-driven sketch show.
Yes.
So nowadays, what they're doing is, again, you're getting topical one-liners, but you're also seeing an infusion of characters, which, to me, now the best part of the show is like that 8 minutes section. The rest of it can... I don't know. I don't enjoy it as much as I used to because I love the characters.
I think that's what it really boils down to for me, too. Like, you don't have people like Canteen Boy or, thing like Chris Farley with Van Down by the River, like those great characters. You don't have those anymore.
It's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, that show is evolving and changed with the times, and hopefully one day they go back to, characters at some point.
I would just love to live in a world that's not so political. It would just be nice,
It's getting worse.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but
I might be dead before the world is not so political again.
Yeah, you're probably gonna be, buddy. It's coming soon. Anyways, let's get back to asking Steve Byrne questions again. I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, like sort of I would say retro influences to your stand-up. And I think you've sort of adapted that in a way where it's not only a retro look, like we see that in Champagne of Comedy, The Last Late Night. It's a retro look, but it's also an evolution of the game as well. I mean, was that something that you were kind of going for? Like sort of an evolution, but also like a, sort of a callback to the days of the early late nights?
Well, I think like to Jason's point, I mean, things are so politicized these days. And what happens is there's such a, all the scales are tipped towards the left. I grew up with Carson, Leno, Letterman. That was kind of my wheelhouse. But especially Leno and Carson, I was much younger. I was a kid when Carson was on. But I knew enough that this guy was pretty centrist. Who's ever in a position of power, whoever the president is, he's going to make fun of him. Same with Leno. I think towards the back half of Letterman's career, he started just saying, fuck it. I'm just going to be who I am authentically. which worked for him. But also he started getting a little more cantankerous, but he was also very liberal. And I think what happened is everybody followed suit. And now every single late night talk show, all the political satire shows are all hard left. And so what I wanted to do was do that format. My favorite is always the monologue. I always love the late night talk show start off with a monologue. So I was like, I love to do one where it's more centrist and it kind of cuts down the middle and everybody gets it. So that was kind of like the point with the last late night, was doing it, that special. Unfortunately for me, it's the best work I've ever done. I worked so hard on it, but it's like suppressed on Amazon because it is political, right? I mean, I have some jokes that hit on the hard left as much as I hit on the hard right, but the executives are obviously left and they didn't like that. So they dial it down, right?
Yeah.
Which is a bummer. But at the same time, the whole point of doing it was you're seeing three different styles of writing in a late night talk show. You're getting one-liners for 20 minutes. You're getting storytelling, which is panel when you sit at the desk, that's 20 minutes. And then you get traditional stand-up at the end. So 2, 4, 6, that's an hour worth of material, all in a very digestible format that we all know, the late night talk show. And as I started doing it and exploring it, what I found is that the attention span on all your socials on your phone, it's perfect. 10, 15 seconds, you do that monologue joke, it's on there. And I think what's happening now is these videos, especially from my end, are kind of really resonating with people because late night talk shows, nobody watches them anymore. People don't tune in. People don't watch. They know it's going to be hard left. And so me being centrist, I'm trying to hit everybody. But at the same time, I'm kind of kissing the ring to a dying format of entertainment, which is the late night talk show. The variety show was popular in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's dead and gone. I think the late night talk show in another 5 to 10 years, that'll be dead and gone. It's a shame, but it's something I grew up with. It benefited my early career. And I've really done the research and gone down the rabbit hole on all of them. Carson, Leno, Letterman, the books by Bill Carter, the Conan-Leno feud, and how the biggest casualty of it was always George Lopez. Nobody ever talks about him. Everybody always sympathized with Conan, but it's like Conan, what Leno did to Conan did exactly to George Lopez. And Lopez is like the one guy that nobody ever talks about. It's like the guy was riding high. He was successful. He was getting great ratings. And then he was as cordial as Conan was to Leno, but then, he was the biggest casualty of it all, which is a bummer. So I really do love the late night talk show art form, and again, it's just it's going by the wayside.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate as well that it's going away because, I mean, we saw it with the last late night. Like it's a format that has always worked. It can always work if you just fill it with the right material, I feel like.
Yeah, you hope to, but these days, again, especially if you're trying to do something creative, out of the echo chamber of Hollywood, they're going to suppress it, unfortunately. If I put any joke up right now that mentions Trump, Biden, Kamala Harris, Chris Christie, whatever, instantly on Facebook, on all the socials, they get suppressed immediately. There's an absolute difference between just a normal standard monologue joke I have and anything that is somewhat political. You can see it in real time get dialed down. And I've worked with people and I talk to people that work in Silicon Valley and for Facebook, and they tell me, oh, yeah, absolutely, it gets suppressed. So it's a bummer, but it's a sign of the times. And that's why I think people move away from the gatekeepers of the streamers and broadcast networks and are doing things like this, right? Where you have the liberty to do these things and say these things.
So do you think
100%.
the late night talk show sort of thing, I mean, it's been such a staple of pop culture for so long. Do you think it can be saved, or do you think it's kind of too far gone?
I don't think so, because it means something to you and I, right? It means something to us because we grew up with it. We're familiar with it. But to my daughter, who's 11, to my son, who's 7, if I told them, hey, I'm going to be on the Tonight Show tomorrow, it'd be like, what is the Tonight Show? Yeah. They have no idea what the Tonight Show is. And I think anybody under the age of 25, they could care less. They don't give a shit. I mean, there's a writer's strike going on right now. And during the last few strikes, which I remember, people would always be like, oh, my God, I wonder what Leno and Letterman are going to say about it tonight. I wonder what they're going to do. They're going to go on the air without writers? Like, what are they going to do? And nowadays, nobody cares. All 5 of those guys are doing a podcast together. Mm-hmm. And nobody gives a flying fuck about anything they say. It's amazing how insignificant. Look, if you gave the Late Late Show with James Corden, I mean, if you asked 9 out of 10 comics, would you want to do it? I think half of them would be like, I think I'm comfortable doing my podcast, actually. I make more money. I have more liberty to say what I want. I'm not beholden to networks. And also, like, do I have to worry about getting an audience in every night? Am I going to be worried about the content I'm allowed to say? Am I going to get in trouble because I tweeted something last night at 2 a.m? Like, there's so many more ramifications with an antiquated, old school way of doing business. I don't think those executives understand just how powerful these podcasts really are at the end of the day, and the independent nature that a lot of comics have and the freedom that they're garnering.
Oh, speaking of, go ahead, Jacob. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, in terms of viewers as well, like, you think about how many people watch this show hosted by, two nobodies versus think about a show like Whiskey Ginger, right? Hosted by Andrew Santino.
Sure.
I guarantee you that podcast does thousands of more listeners an episode than the Tonight Show does viewers an episode. Like,
sure. I mean, and the viewership ultimately is coming from YouTube, and they're generating more revenue probably off the YouTube clips than the actual, Firestone or Geico commercials that NBC's running from 12:30 to 1:30 in the morning. I mean, who knows? But it's all changed so dramatically. But unfortunately, it is one of the casualties. And they've tried multiple times to do a talk show format on the streamers, and it's never clicked.
Yeah. And so here's a theory for you, Steve, because we've talked about this before on the show recently, I think. But do you think that the major difference is not a sign of the times, but the fact that, the late night shows in 2008, 2009 were hosted by legendary comics like Craig Ferguson, Jay Leno, and David Letterman, and then now they're not really hosted by any real funny comics?
I don't know about that. I think entertainment's so fractured. I think even 10 years ago, it meant something to see Channing Tatum. I don't know, Ryan Gosling. It's like, oh my God, I get to see him and he's not in character and he's in a movie. But now everybody's just following him on Tinder or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So it doesn't matter anymore. You're seeing him every day, right? Or every day if you follow him, you could find clips of him every day. So it's not as special. It's not as revealing as it used to be. And I think some of the mystique of Hollywood is gone. And I think that's why even when you go around Hollywood nowadays, the cachet and the glamour of Hollywood is absolutely gone. It's nowhere to be seen. It's unfortunate. And I think that's why it was great to see like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, because you're seeing this nugget of like a time capsule when Hollywood meant something, when movie stars meant something, where even being a TV star did mean something. And nowadays, you could sign me to a 5-year sitcom on CBS right now, and I would complete those 5 years. I would walk around in a mall after the 5th year, and I guarantee nobody would even recognize me. And that's a sad sign of the times, but it just doesn't matter. What they're manufacturing doesn't matter. What matters is guys and gals doing something in a studio in their basement and connecting with a niche audience and making a very good living off it.
Not only that, but like it's the influencers that everybody flocks to now that are super famous. Sure. Like there really aren't very many like movie stars anymore. I mean, we still have like Tom Cruise and people.
And I snap my fingers. Miles Teller is going to come in and ask for a table. Like, how many people are going to be excited to see Miles Teller, right? Yeah. But then I go, okay, I'm going to snap my fingers, and Theo Vaughn's going to end up at that host stand, and then watch how many more people run up. Oh my God, Rat King, can I get a picture? It's like, that's where we're at these days. And I'm not negating Miles Teller. I think he's just the person that came to my mind. He's a very talented actor. He's done incredible work. Whiplash is one of my favorite films of all time. But does he have the resonance, in 4 or 5 popular films that Theo does? And Theo's connecting with somebody every day for an hour and a half, and on top of that, the hour specials he's done. So these are just examples, but I just don't think that bandwidth of investment from a lot of people of like, I listen to Theo 5 days a week or, whatever it might be, compared to the resonance of a film that you liked, because even films these days don't have the cachet that they used to. So
Well, it's all about the parasocial relationships now.
yeah,
Like even with this show, we have like our hardcore fans. Like we have a whole chat text group with like our producers and stuff like that. Our Patreon producers, and it's sort of like we have a relationship with the people that really like the show, and even with other podcasters and stuff like you said with Theo Vaughn. Like people go listen to his podcast,
sure.
every week, and he has that relationship with those people. Actors don't really have that parasocial relationship where you just sort of zone in with people nowadays.
Listen to Jason putting that college degree to work, dude. Saying parasocial relationship 3 times in a row. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I can get the big words out every once in a while.
Okay. Well, so all right, we've been talking for about 30 minutes now. So let's go ahead and go to a little timeline here, Steve. What we kind of do on the show
Okay.
is we sort of create a timeline of when you started comedy to where you ended up.
Okay.
And so I want to take things back to your very first ever open mic, if you can remember it. What year was it?
Yeah.
What year was it? Where in the world were you, and how did the set go?
September 30th, 1997 was my first time ever on stage. I was at the New York Comedy Club in New York City. I was stressed out. I had been practicing it for like a week in front of a mirror, going over my lines. And fortunately for me, it went very, very well. Look, by no means am I proud of any of the material I was doing,
Yeah.
but I certainly sold it. And I did well enough that I felt confident to do it a second time. And I think had that first time been devastating, I don't know if I would have continued on, but the first time I certainly did well enough to think, okay, I want to do it again. And I put so much pressure on myself. I was so stressed. Afterwards, I came out of the club and just went outside and just started crying. I just emotionally put so much into it. And the relief, I felt so relieved that it was over with. And I was like, oh my God, all that hard work, it paid off. And I just like wept. And I also knew in that moment, it was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do the rest of my life. So I just knew that's it. I don't care if I ever make a dime doing this. I'm hooked. And it was like, the first, especially 8 years, stand up to me was like the hottest girl I've ever been around. And I couldn't wait to see her every night. Every time it ended, I couldn't wait to see her again. I was like obsessed with her. I'd have friends visit from out of town in New York City. I'd say, come meet me, but I got to get my work done. New Year's Eve, Christmas, didn't matter. I was at the cellar every night. So I was absolutely hooked. Absolutely. Loved it.
See, that's what I was going to ask. Like, what was that moment that you were like, this is what I want to do?
It was the first time, yeah.
Wow.
I just knew instantly that was, I was like, oh God, it was just the thought that you could write something down on a napkin and then take it into a room full of strangers and get that reaction and, kind of like, be the life of the party. And it's like, this is amazing. Yeah, of course I want to do that. And when you're 22, in New York City, it's like you get to do that and go to like some of the hottest clubs in the city. And there's like all these tourists and young girls that are visiting. And it's like, it was the greatest introduction. So, professionally it was amazing, but for a kid who's 22, socially, it was the greatest thing to ever happen to an I was going out every night, just having the time of my life. I absolutely went for it 100%.
So what is your writing process like? Do you actually sit down for, like, some comics like to sit down for like an hour a day and try to write something, or are you just sort of like write it down as it comes?
No, I think especially, when I was younger, yes, I would do that. And I'd go through different phases where I would like improv stuff. I'd take a funny idea, I'd record it and listen back to it. And now with the topical stuff, it's fun to kind of like understand the algorithm of setup, ironic twist, setup, ironic twist. So that's kind of fun. But for the most part, like, going through the news, going through headlines, spending a little bit of time working on those. And then also just like going out to the clubs and just doing crowd work is one of my favorite things to do. When I was younger, if I was doing 7 or 8 spots a night, I would take one set and be like, all right, at least one set, go up with no material and work on your crowd work. So I would do that. And nowadays I spend so much time writing my feature scripts that that I'm so burnt out on writing. I don't really have as much time as I used to do it on stand-up. So I just go to do crowd work to blow off steam, literally to just blow off steam, to be on stage, to do that, have that connection, but at the same time still like just kind of like figure it out and live by the wire, which is something I really love doing. And I think the audience appreciates it. Unfortunately, nowadays, everybody's doing crowd work. But at the same time, I think if you're damn good at it and you worked hard at it, the cream rises to the top. So we'll see.
Crowd work terrifies me. I don't know why. It just does.
Oh, it's the best.
All right, Jason has no elaboration on why crowd work terrifies him. I guess I'll jump in here.
I'm waiting for you to jump in. I know this is like, we usually have like musical guests on that, that like I've been listening to since I was a kid, and like I geek out. So now it's Jacob's turn to geek out. So,
but here's the thing: what I'll tell you about crowd work, right, is that people think because you're a stand-up, you can just go up and just be a stand-up. It's like there's different gears to it all, right? So roasting, different gear. Storytelling, different gear. Setup punch, different gear. Traditional stand-up, different gear. Crowd work, different gear. So over the years, I've tried to do and force myself into situations where I was like, all right, let me try storytelling, which has never been something I did. But for last late night, I knew I was going to do panels. So I was like, all right, let me try to do some storytelling with that, especially in the back half, on the very end of it. Even like the monologue jokes, that's a totally different cadence, a totally different style, totally different delivery, totally different way of writing. So I studied that for like 5 years, and a good friend of mine, Argus Hamilton, was very, very helpful with me and instrumental, because he's somebody who's a Comedy Store regular, a total vet, and one of my favorite human beings on the planet. So, all these things I've tried to, almost like in a Bruce Lee kind of way, take all the different elements of like fighting and put it into like mixed martial arts. It's like, for me, just personally on my journey, I'm trying to explore all the different styles and deliveries that you can, execute on stage as stand-up. And one of my strong suits absolutely is crowd work. The one-liners, which 5 years ago I'd never done in my life, that's like a bread and butter part of my career now. And storytelling is a lot of fun too. I enjoy it. But I think if you feel like that I'm so scared it frightens me, it's like, that's all the reason more why you should do it. I think especially as crowd work, every single night something's going to go wrong. A waitress is going to drop a glass. Somebody's going to yell something. The more you put yourself in that situation where you have to reflexively say something humorous in real time, it's only going to benefit you. And eventually, God forbid, you're, fingers crossed, you're doing theaters. Well, guess what? Now you can shift gears and give the audience a total package show, as opposed to just sitting up there and not knocking anybody. But if you're just one gear for 60 minutes, I mean, the show's going to get pretty boring, especially when the comic's cadence, right? I mean, we all know there's writers and comics that we all know. It's just like after 40 minutes, you just get like sick of it. It's like, okay, here it comes, boom. Here it comes. You got to mix it up, I think.
Well, a lot of reason why I am terrified of it is because I am almost deaf in my left ear. So it's really hard for me to hear, people when I'm up on stage doing stuff. So I don't want to be up there going, "Huh? What'd you say? Huh?" Because I'm an old man now. I played drums.
Maybe.
I played drums for 25 years. So my left ear is almost gone at this point.
And this is where I say, Jason, just wear your hearing aids. You old decrepit piece of shit. Put your hearing aid in your ear.
I guess I could, but
it's the full solution. If you're at a rowdy show and you think someone's gonna yell something at you, put your hearing aid in so you have a comeback.
Yeah, but then if I put my hearing aid in, then I really am an old man at that point.
Dude, but you play into it. You play into it when somebody's shitting on you. You just say, "Oh, I turned you down. I didn't even hear you." You just fuck around with it. Yeah, lean into it totally.
Yeah,
or just that's your thing. Just put your hearing aid on and be like, "I'm about to destroy this motherfucker right now." You guys have no idea. Wait until I can hear you, dude. But I'm curious, Steve, was crowd work ever like a mountain for you to climb? Because I know that like sort of the climax of the opening act was Will like struggling with the hecklers and then finally figuring out like how to get back at them and have the the final good show.
I don't know. It's definitely a part of it. I think the crowd work was just like him going up on radio. Look, the whole film is in general, right? It's a kid's first time ever going on the road. So, in general, it was taking everything that can go wrong for a comic and combining it over the course of 4 days
Right.
and multiplying it and constantly tightening the vice on him and understanding that, the 4 days that he's on the road, it's an encapsulation of the next 10 years. Really, that's what it is. It's just like if you're not growing, if you're not learning from those experiences, if you're not like learning the third time you get punched in the face, maybe the fourth time, like try to block it, you don't deserve to be doing it. So, Will Chu in this movie is just like getting his teeth kicked in every single night, and then finally like learning, okay, the third time maybe I should duck or whatever it might be. So he was prepared for it. Yeah, he was absolutely prepared for it. And whether it's crowd work, whether it's a joke, whatever it is, it was just constantly reminding the audience that A, this isn't easy, and B, you got to learn from your mistakes.
Right. I want to skip ahead in the timeline a little bit here. I know we just talked about your first open mic, but I want to talk about your first ever time doing the Tonight Show, right? Because you've done it 10 times. Were 9 of those with Leno?
They were nine. Well, 9 of them were with Leno. One of them was with Conan. So it's weird to like. I think I was one of the few, if not the maybe only person that did both in that time period, which was crazy because Leno was doing a 10 o'clock and then Conan was doing the like 11:15 or whatever it was.
Right.
So I had done both of them right at that weird time. It was a crazy time, but my first time. It was a huge honor because I grew up with, again, Carson. The nights that I was allowed to stay up late, I would beg to watch the monologue because I always loved it. I thought it was really cool. And my favorite parts were always the jokes that didn't go well for Carson. So I really enjoyed that. But first time I did it, I thought my heart rate was skipping so high that you could see my tie moving because I was so nervous because to me it meant something. At the time I did it, it still meant something. So it was really cool. And for my parents to see, my name in the opening credits, it was really, really cool to share that with my folks. In that moment in time, it was great. But nowadays, it doesn't have the gravity or cachet, especially within the industry that it used to.
Right. And so how are you feeling on the 10th time that you did the Tonight Show when you have 9 other appearances under your belt?
I mean, it was a blast because then you kind of know the stage manager, Bob and Ross Mark, and like you're getting to know everybody, so you feel really comfortable. And I think the thing about those late night talk shows is that, especially the first time you do it, you're thinking, millions of people are watching this. And I think it took me the second or third time to understand the trick of it is ignore the cameras, ignore that facet of you're on television, you're professional. There's a crowd here of 250 people. Play to the crowd, entertain the crowd, win the crowd over. Ignore the fact that they're telling you, oh, it's a TV set. I don't care. I'm doing what I want to do to survive over the course of these 4.5 minutes. And I'm going to make these 250 people A, like me, and B, hopefully laugh. And so the minute I ignored the cameras and just started locking in on the faces and not thinking anything other than, I got to make that woman laugh, that guy laugh, that guy laugh. That was it. And it just made those sets go so much quicker and so much easier for me. And I was able to enjoy them because I treated it like a club set.
So do you get to have like a Tonight Show punch card for like the 10th time you get to do a guest host spot?
I wish I did. Yeah, it was. I'll tell you, during that whole experience too, Leno couldn't have been classier or kinder or sweeter. Every single time I did it, at that time I'd done virtually everybody, and he was by far the nicest. Yeah,
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, you watch Leno and they just don't make him like that anymore. I would say that him and Letterman were probably the last two, like, classic, like, late night guys.
Well,
I
they were
feel
both
like.
they came from, the Comedy Store. They were road guys. They were
Yeah.
real comics, I'm not knocking any of these guys, but James Corden is a sitcom actor. He's a personality. Jimmy Fallon comes from sketch. He's probably the one that probably toured the most. He actually did stand up. It's not that he was known for stand up. He was obviously known for SNL, and he didn't have to do stand up. He would tour occasionally, but out of all those guys, I think Fallon, at least for me, was like the more traditional in
Mhm.
terms of like what we would expect from a late night talk show host.
Right.
Jay Leno was still touring while he was, hosting the Tonight Show.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's,
Still tours. It's unbelievable.
like that was his bread and butter was touring as a comedian. Because I remember he would come here. We live on the Gulf Coast. 'Cause he would come to the casinos all the time. Yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
there's some people that just
Crazy.
love it. I think he's almost robotic in
Hmm.
terms of like he's so programmed and dialed into it. It's just like he doesn't know any other way. Um, I don't know. I always respect somebody like that because I think 85% of us, if you're given, like the guy's like 50 million in the bank, and you're still going out to like, you know, Chucky's Casino in whatever the fuck it's just like, goddamn, you still want to do this? Okay, it's unbelievable.
That's the
Yeah,
call
that's
of
for
it, though.
sure.
Just being
Yeah,
on that stage, telling jokes, making people laugh. There's some kind of weird voodoo magic there.
yeah. Fuck that. I mean, I take my 50 million and run. Like I am done. I'm sitting home. I'm watching Phantom Menace. I'm going to crank up the speaker, watch the pod racing.
Yeah, no shit.
Who needs this shit?
It's got to be in the chin, right? Like there's some kind of special juju hidden in there.
It's got to be. Yeah, it's this beacon of hope. Just unbelievable.
Jay Leno's chin is the fountain of youth. Like
That's right. Yeah,
he's had it this whole time. He's able to sleep in a freaking Days Inn at 80 something years old.
unreal. What a talent, and obviously when I started working in New York City, I heard like he back in the day was the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Like everybody was like, he is legit the guy, just the total crusher. And I would go every now and then and watch him at the Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach in California. He would do Sunday nights, even when he was on the Tonight Show, and he always had obviously new material. He had that band of joke tellers and writers for him, but crushed, absolutely crushed.
Right. We're getting close to the. I hate that we're getting close to the end of this interview, man, because there are so many things that we have not touched on yet, dude. We
One
haven't
thing
even
I want to
talked about.
ask, I got to ask him. He's got, if you're watching this on video, Steve has a comic book spinner rack behind him.
Yes.
And I got to ask you, like, are you a huge comic book fan?
Yo, yeah. When I was a kid, I'd always go to Ides in Pittsburgh. That's the big Ides Entertainment is the big comic book store there. Um, one of the coolest things when I had Sullivan and Son on the air, we filmed in Warner Brothers, stage 10 and 5. And Jim Lee, who was head of DC, I think VP of DC Comics at the time, and still is. He came over one day. He's like, I'm a huge Sullivan Son fan. I was like, what? And he's Korean, so it was really cool to like have Jim Lee come and visit the set. And he gave me a copy of Hush. And while we're rehearsing, he's sketching in it for me. And to this day, it's like, if there's a fire in my house, I'm grabbing that copy of Hush and I'm dipping out of here. But one of the greatest compliments I got was there's a series called Chew back in the day. And I had learned through the writer that the artist had been watching my half-hour special at the time. And I came out dressed like one of the Reservoir Dogs, right? And you got this half Asian guy dressed in a black suit and skinny tie. And so Chew aesthetically was based off of who I am, half Asian in a black suit, skinny tie. And so, I look at these pictures of Chew and I'm like, oh my God. And so to get like an autographed book of like, hey, thanks for inspiring us. It was like that is super sick. And again, one of those things where you're just doing jokes, you're just telling stand up, and over the course of your career, you never know where you end up. You never know, what surprises are around the corner. But that to me was one of the wildest experiences I've ever had because I remember reading it back in the day, and then to have those guys say, "Yeah, you inspired." She was like, "That's fucking sick."
Have you ever thought about maybe trying your hand at maybe writing some comics?
No. I love narrative too much, so I'm getting ready to film the opening act I got to do. I'm filming this second film very shortly. And once I understood the foundation and pillars of storytelling narratively for feature, it's something where I really fell in love with it. So prior to, I would just go out, do my jokes, come back, do a little bit of writing here and there, and now I go out on the road and I write these scripts. So we're gonna bang up this second one. I think in early 2024. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Awesome.
Very excited to give that a watch whenever it does come to see the light of day. Mr. Byrne, please tell everybody where can they stream your most recent comedy special, The Champagne of Comedy?
Champagne of Comedy is at Punch Up Live. So just Google Steve Byrne Punch Up Live and Punch Up Live. It's a comedy platform that's I really feel like a game changer in the world of comedy right now, because essentially what happens is we're comedy content providers, right? So no matter where we put this stuff up, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, Patreon, et cetera, the business model is we create the content, they collect the most valuable asset, which is data. And what Punch Up is basically saying, no, let's reverse engineer it and make a platform strictly for entertainers, especially comedians, because we create so much content. So what you do is we put the content up, and then we as comics, we as entertainers, we as content providers have direct access to the people that enjoy our material. So, for example, you put an hour special on YouTube and you pray to God people watch it, then you pray to God people follow you on your socials, then you pray to God people see the post you did, I'm in Cleveland, and then you hope that they buy tickets. So it's kind of like this diminishing funnel. Whereas like on Punch Up, it's like you put the special up and you have direct access to them. So it eliminates the middleman and there's no suppression or censorship. So for me, I was really excited to be a part of it from the very beginning, and very excited to put my content exclusively on there. So
Awesome.
It's a pretty cool format, and more comics are jumping on board. Joe List jumped on, Sam Morrell, Joe Gatto's jumping on very shortly. Josh Wolf is putting something up. A bunch of other names I can't mention right now, but a lot of New York guys are jumping on. So it's gonna be pretty cool.
It's a good platform for sure. I mean, I looked at it a little bit when I was watching The Champagne of Comedy, and it's surprising that something like this has not come to fruition yet, and I'm happy that it has. Okay, so definitely go watch The Champagne of Comedy. Definitely rent or buy the opening act on YouTube or Amazon Prime. One last question before we start saying goodbye, Steve. This is sort of the pinnacle question that we've built our podcast around.
Okay.
We've asked our biggest guests this, guys like Sean Patton, Sam Talent. For my money, you're probably the biggest guest that we've had on in terms of stand-up comedy.
Guys. It's gonna get better. It's just like your comedy careers. It's only gonna get better. I promise.
It's only up for here, baby.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, you're that you're widely respected in the comedy industry. So I'm very excited to ask you this question. When was the last time you shit your pants as a grown man?
Well, hold on one second. Let me show you this, okay?
Is it shit in your pants?
Hold on.
If he comes back with some shitty drawers,
I think you guys are gonna dig this. Well, for me personally, the last time I did, it's gotta be a few years, because I've learned the recipe of why it happened to me. Great. Because when it happens to you, you instantly start like matlocking it and like Sherlock Holmes it. You're like, wait, what did I eat? Like, how did this happen? And you spin the clock back. It's like, oh, chili and ice cream at 3 a.m. at Denny's is probably not a good recipe before you do morning radio. So, but I'll tell you this, I was working with a young gentleman named Colin Jost, who you guys know. He's on Weekend Update, and he had been featuring for me. Now, I was performing at the Punchline in Sacramento, and I was on a fucking hot roll. I could not, like, it was one of those where I was like, the audience is just like banging. I got them on the palm of my hand. And I'm doing this joke, and it's crushing like I've never crushed before. I was like, whoa, this is fucking crazy. And I remember there was a little incident at the peak of one of the jokes And that was it. That was it, right? So I come off stage, and Colin Jost goes, dude, I got to show you something. I go, okay. And he takes me out, okay? And there is shit in the middle of the hallway. Okay. Now, keep in mind, this is the early show. There's a late show. So there's a second show and there's a line of people, but there's like shit like outside the club door. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I was, you instantly think, did somebody bring their dog or whatever? He goes, dude, you made a guy laugh so hard, he got up and he shit his pants in front of the. So Colin gave me this. That's it.
Wow.
He's like, you got
Oh my
a picture
God.
of it. And that's the shit in the sidewalk. And right there, it says, Steve Byrne made a man shit his pants. Early show, January 22nd, 2010. And that's from my boy Colin Jost. So this is one of the prized possessions I have in my office. And I'm not making this up. That was in California. 3 months later, I was at Yuck Yucks in like Calgary in Alberta. And same joke, same thing happened. I made a dude, but this guy didn't make it out of the showroom. It was like towards the back of the room. He shit his pants. So gentlemen, domestic and international, I've made people shit their pants at my shows. It's the most proud I've ever been in my career. Yeah.
Steve, what kind of demographic of people come to your show?
Well, I think just imagine 250 Chumleys. That's who's at my show apparently. People that eat at Arby's and love beef jerky and Red Bull and vodka. I think that's just time. They're waiting to detonate the bomb in their tummy.
That's going to be the name of my first album, 250 Chumleys.
Well, you said you were on a hot roll, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's what Jacob calls his morning shits. A nice hot roll.
Hot roll, baby. Yeah. But Steve, when was the last time that you personally loaded your underpants?
I mean, I think the last time I did it, and it's funny because every time it happens, I always text Colin Jost because,
of course, yeah, me too, dude. That's what everyone does.
He has stories. I'm telling you, his book, A Very Punchable Face, is one of the funniest reads.
Yeah,
it's a great book, but he is the guy you think, oh, he's got it together. He went to Harvard. He's married to a movie star, an Avenger. He's head writer of SNL on Update. You would never think he's got the most shit his pants stories of anybody I know in my life. He's shit his pants on first dates. He shit his pants during finals at Harvard. Like his book tells about it all. It's hilarious.
This man is married to Scarlett Johansson, and he's shitting his pants like every 10 minutes. Like, what the hell?
I have a chance in life, dude.
Oh, the last time I was hanging out with him, he's like, he was asking her, he's like, should I have some ice cream? She's like, oh, are you scared you're going to shit your pants? He's like, I think it's worth it. And so he's like, they're so like comfortable about it. But yeah, I anytime I've had close calls or I've texted him because it's like one of those things. Just like I've always respected him being so open about it. It's probably been a few years though. I'll never forget the first time I did it. The first time I did it, I was in my early 30s on the road, and it was never as bad or as worse as this one. I hooked up with a girl, single at the time. We go back to the hotel. We hook up, have a great time, and then I had morning radio. So it's Thursday night. So Friday, I wake up. I got to go do morning press. I go do the morning radio, and then I get in the elevator, and I press the button. And as we go up, I just had this like hot flash. I've never had it before in my life, where it just like everything got super hot for 10 seconds. I felt sweat beads come out, and then it stopped. And I was like, oh, that was weird. And then all of a sudden, like, I completely shit my pants. And it wasn't even like, there wasn't a fart. There wasn't like a warning flare. The warning flare was the hot flash I had. But I was like, it wasn't even a question. There wasn't even like, did I just shit? I absolutely knew definitively 100%. I was like, oh, you just shit your pants. So then the doors open. I'm like, oh God, there's a world out here. And I'm kind of like, creeping over in my hotel room. And then I'm like, oh my God, is this girl still in my room? And I swipe the card and I look in and she's passed out in the bed. I'm like, oh my God, she's fucking sleeping here. So I'm like looking down the hallway. It's like 8 a.m. I don't know what to do. I take my pants off and I run over the Pepsi machine and I throw my pants away. I go back to my room. I run in. I take a shower. Mission impossible. Not at all. I cleared the fence. I did it. Nobody knows I shit my pants. It worked out beautifully, right? I crawl in the bed. And the minute I crawl in the bed, the girl kind of like rolls over and she goes, "Oh no." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe I didn't shower enough. Maybe she's picking up. Maybe she knew." And she goes, "I am so sorry." I go, "What?" She goes, "Sometimes when I drink too much, I piss the bed and I pissed your bed." And I was like, I was just sitting there. I was like, "It's cool." She's like, "What?"
Completely okay.
I'm like, "Yeah, it's cool. We're all human. We make mistakes." She's like, "Well, you're being really cool, but I've had this happen a few times with some guys, and they get pissed." I'm like, "Not this guy. This guy doesn't get pissed." She's like, "Thank you for being so cool." And in my head, I was like, "You want to see how cool I am? Follow me to the Pepsi machine. I'm going to show you something about a garbage can."
And then she's like, "I'm gonna leave before I get murdered now."
It's cool, baby. I've loaded up my shorts a little while ago. It's awesome.
Yeah. You want to go shopping for some khakis? I got to go to the Gap.
Okay. And this is where we get to see how many diehard fans we have of this podcast, because I need everyone to tag Colin Jost on social media to come on our show and tell us all of his shitting his pants stories, because we built a listener base off of this.
His book, I think I have it over here with my books, A Very Punchable Face. His book is so good. After I read it, I said, "Do you mind if I sell your book as my merch?" Because it was so funny.
Yeah. He's so good, dude. Definitely need to get Colin Jost on this podcast. Have you perchance ever shit your pants while wearing a suit? Because I know the suit is sort of your mainstay.
No, I've never shit my pants wearing the suit. I will tell you, I have absolutely split my pants wearing my suit. I split my pants recently, was probably 2 years ago. I do this thing called Sausage Party at the very end, where I bring up a bunch of people on stage. I create this boy band, and I have like I wouldn't say they're like skinny. It's like a skinny fit, I guess, right? But what happened is I brought this girl on stage, and so it's like 5 or 6 guys, and we dance for the girl. And usually I give the girl like this pseudo lap dance. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but she was very she's bigger than most girls.
Yeah.
And so
she's like, I like them, Steve.
I
Is what you're trying to say.
So I went to straddle her, and as soon as I straddled her, I just started, and I was like, "Ah, shit! I just ripped my pants." And it wasn't just like a tear; it was like the back seam all the way to like the undercarriage. It completely shredded. And so, I just like, instead of turning around, I just kind of moonwalked to the back, and then closed the bit, and I said goodnight, everybody, and I kind of like sidestepped off stage. And I went back, and my whole pants were just completely ripped.
That is hilarious.
At least your balls didn't fall out like Lenny Kravitz.
No. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing. It was so bad.
Joey Image, who is a retired wrestler in our chat room, he says, "Oh God, I've split my pants during a match more than once."
Oh, because those guys, I assume they're not like, are they wearing underwear or like a jockstrap? I assume, but if you're wrestling, it's not like you're wearing Hanes with those like fire red spandex pants.
You're just throwing out the big old hot sack of balls.
And then they have to just roll with it, like, "Oh no, this was what was supposed to happen."
Part of it, yeah, it's part of it, right?
They make it like a part of next week's match. It's like, it's the split your pants match.
Well, Steve, before you go, you got to plug the podcast too, because I'm a huge podcast listener and I love the podcast.
Oh yeah, love Comedy Pinata, dude.
Yeah, Comedy Pinata, I love doing it. It was so fun. It was so fun doing it, but I just ran out of bandwidth because, again, I'm getting ready to do this film. But I do a show with Joe Gatto from Practical Jokers called Two Cool Moms, and we help everybody with their queries, with their questions. If you have issues in your life, you DM us or write us on Instagram, and we answer your questions on the air. So we just signed with iHeartRadio, and it's going to be premiering in the next week or two. Cool. So it's a lot of fun to get to work with Joe, and it's a fun podcast to do.
I love Joe Gatto so much. He was my favorite Joker.
He's great. Yeah, he's all 4 of those guys. They're the nicest guys in the world. They're all super sweet. They're grounded. They're hilarious in their own way. And those are guys where if you go out in public with any of them, I've got some really famous friends. The reaction they get is unlike anything else because they're on TV 24 hours a
Oh
day
yeah.
and the accessibility. And you go anywhere with the four of them, it's like, I mean, forget it. I
Game
tell them
over.
it's like going out with the Beatles, but all four of you are Ringo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you mean the best Beatle, dude? All four of you are the best Beatle.
And Joey in the chat room, he said, I was in a suit the first time with boxers on and 12 minutes left in the match.
oh,
That's
Joey,
a
I love you, but pro wrestling's dumb. Why are you doing that?
in a suit.
In a suit, dude?
Yeah. Please
Hey, I
welcome
love
the
wrestling.
accountants.
Joey's going to fly down here and take you out if you say anything bad about wrestling.
That's fine, dude. Come down here and take me out to a dinner. What are you going to do? You're a pro wrestler. What? You're going to slay me through a chair?
I would love to. Actually, that should be a Patreon content.
All right, we should do that for Patreon content. All right, we gotta wrap this up, Jay. We're rambling now. Steve, please tell everybody what you want them to know. Where can they follow you? What do you want the people to check out?
Just go to Punch Up Live. Check out the new special if you want. I have a crowdwork special dropping tomorrow. And follow my socials. Everything is at Steve Byrne Live. And yeah, I mean, if you enjoy the journey, obviously this is Open Micers Podcast. If you enjoy the journey, especially at the very beginning, the opening act is kind of like a love letter to anybody at the beginning of their journey, no matter what it might be. It could be poetry, it could be writing, it could be, whatever the passion is. In this film, it happens to be about stand-up. And it's taking all those things that really did happen to me at the very beginning of my career and putting them into those 4 days. So it's a film I'm really proud of. I'm glad we got to do it. And I'm glad you guys got to appreciate it and check it out. So thank you so much for watching it. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
I loved it. So everybody out there, go check
well.
out the movie, the opening act. It's fantastic. Anything else you got left to say, Jacob? I know you're lagging a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have stupid country bumpkin internet. Yeah, dude, just that my Don't Tell set for Ocean Springs is going to be this weekend. It's going to be at, I think the place of it is the Jackson Pearl House or something like that in Ocean Springs in downtown. So come check that out. I'll be doing a set there. As far as the podcast goes, we have a lot of fun guests coming on. We're finishing out this month with Tom Cotter and Matt O'Brien, who was a staff writer on Conan. I just booked Sean Donnelly today for next month. So, yeah, we've got plenty of fun stand-ups and writers coming on for you guys. And definitely get in that Patreon if you are enjoying what we're doing.
And as far as me, I don't have any comedy stuff coming up, but I do have some shows with Falls from Grace, the band. We got some stuff coming up in New Orleans soon. So I will get those dates to everybody as soon as I get them. So just be following me at JFunktastic pretty much everywhere. And Steve, thank you so much for hanging out with us, man.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And good luck to you guys. Hopefully we'll see you on the road. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you want to email us, you can email us at openmicerspodcast@gmail.com. You can go to openmicers.com. Also, Linktree/openmicerspodcast takes you everywhere you need to go to find everything we're doing, the Patreon, all that stuff. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OpenMicers, at JFunktastic, at Jacob C. Craig, and at Jacob Craig Comedy. We love you guys, and we will see you again next week.
Wrestling is cool. Don't put me through a chair, please.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching on YouTube.